And welcome to the Evidence Reasons Academy. I'm joined by my frequent co host, Cindy Lincoln. We're going to talk it's not going to be a long show. We're going to talk cell and molecular biology and just watch some videos. It's a good way to learn. Um, we'll try to open up with some of the best stuff first, and we'll save the worst for last. So,
Better not have any worse.
huh?
You better not have any worse.
Well, uh, the process of learning sometimes can be tedious. I feel that it's not good to make it all bad, but it's not good to make it all fun in games either.
You mean there's going to be some nerd?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, got it.
I mean, there might be a point where they could make it fun. There's been a theory about gamifying the process of learning, and I think that would be fabulous. But the amount of investment to be able to make it entertaining, compelling, it's it's just like a big movie production. But you know, just think about the videos we've watched about the cell. People had labored for months to make like a 10-minute video, and it's just powerful. You'll never forget it. Um, and that would be great if we could just make everything that compelling, but it is extraordinarily the amount of investment to make it that good is just hard. There's a lot of money and time and thoughtfulness. Um, the you know The alternative, sadly, is just the old-fashioned way where you just read the book and it's boring. And the words are confusing, and it just doesn't. The old way that they studied biochemistry and cell biology, it's like, here is the part, here's another part, here's another part, here are the names, and you just list it all off, and you say, okay, what connects to what? What connects to what? What connects to what? And you're like, I've just memorized the phone book, and a lot of biology learning is just that, and you can imagine how brutal that is. But that was the old school way. um,
Nerd agony.
yes, it was very agonizing. It's amazing that anyone learned anything in that very difficult process. And then there were some people that said, let's just try to, it started with the textbooks. They started to get better illustrations. And so a lot of textbooks, they'll have a professional illustrator as like a co-author because that's so important. So the textbooks got better, and now they're just richly illustrated. Of course, you'll pay through the nose for them, like $200 for some of these books. My
Hmm.
biochem book was like $200, but it was just, I
Yeah.
said the amount of money they spent to illustrate it so that the graphics just kind of just wow you, that was the next step. Then the next step beyond that was to animate it. And so now it's so much easier to kind of convey the point. But as far as creation and intelligent design, we don't need to teach all the details and teach it like a formal class. You know, we don't have to go through 4 years of school to appreciate. So the
Yay.
video, yeah, which is great. Um, and and actually, even people that have been in school and studied this and go back to watch the videos, it actually is very rewarding. It's like, that's what I really studied, and I didn't. You're helping me see the forest through the trees.
Right.
You get to really see it for the first time. So if I if I had in my repertoire all these powerful videos and they're all good, that's what we would do. But unfortunately, we have to do a mix of kind of the new style of learning, which is the animations, a lot of drama, music, just wow, and then kind of the old stuff, the old school. So we'll save the worst for last, and when you get fed up, I'll know that's time to shut it
When
down.
I start yawning,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So okay, so I cleared copyright on this. Since we're not live streamed, I can do this, and I think I found it. I hope I put it somewhere where I can. Yes, yes. Uh, oh no, what did I do with it? Um, where did I put this thing? I feel bad now. I had it. I had it somewhere. I know
Can
I
you
had it
that
some.
noise? started coming on and you had to close something out?
Where did I put it? I had it all queued up for you. I went through a lot of trouble to make it just for Cindy. What did I do with it? Oh, I'm really upset with myself. What did I do?
Can you type the name into your white bar at the lower left of your
Let me see if I can. Maybe I can cheat. That's what I'll do. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Cindy.
Okay.
Oh, it
You
could
waited
be.
for me for an
Wait, wait,
hour.
wait, wait. I think I know what it is. It's an AVI format. Hang on. I think it's in my system, but it's an AVI format. I'm gonna have to kind of tinker with the system.
Okay,
I
hang
think.
on a minute because I have to get a blanket. I'm cold.
Okay.
Evolutionary biology. We don't.
Cindy, are you there?
Is that David Berlinski?
Yes.
He's good.
Yes.
I have a whole playlist on my channel of him. He is killer.
Okay, so this video is 6.5 minutes long. It's the casino of life. Now, I got a clear copy right here. You have to turn off your microphone, and so do I, because I had to trick the machine. Okay, so let's get this going. Oh, before I continue, glory and honor to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We dedicate this show to him. All right, so let's go.
Evolutionary biology. We don't even know what a species is, for heaven's sakes.
So his theory is smoke, but elegant smoke.
There's a certain elegance to it, but you know, I think Einstein had the appropriate remark. He preferred to leave elegance to his tailor.
A room full of smoke? That certainly wasn't what I was hearing from prominent Darwinists like Richard Dawkins.
Evolution is a fact. It's a fact which is established as securely as essentially any other fact that we have in science.
Richard Dawkins is so confident that evolution is a fact, and that therefore God doesn't exist, that he has devoted his entire life to spreading the evolution gospel.
I'm an atheist with respect to the Judeo-Christian God because there is not a shred of evidence in favor of the Judeo-Christian God. It is completely right to say that since the evidence for evolution is so absolutely, totally overwhelming, nobody who looks at it could possibly doubt that if they were sane and not stupid. So the only remaining possibility is that they're ignorant, and most people who don't believe in evolution are indeed ignorant.
But the people I spoke with weren't ignorant. They were highly credentialed scientists. So there had to be something else going on here. So you think the whole theory of evolution is false, or just certain parts of it?
Well, again, evolution is a slippery word. I would say minor changes within species happen. But Darwin didn't write a book called How Existing Species Change Over Time. He wrote a book called The Origin of Species. He purported to show how this same process leads to new species.
I
In
see.
fact, every species. And the evidence for that grand claim is, in my opinion, almost totally lacking.
How does Darwin or Darwinism say life began?
Well, he didn't know. And in fact, nobody knows. So Darwinism, strictly defined, starts after the origin of life and deals only with living things.
Well, how can there be a theory about life without a theory about how life began?
Well, a grand overarching evolutionary story, of course, does include the origin of life, but Darwin's theory doesn't begin until you have the first cell.
Well, does someone have a theory about how life began?
This is the story of a small planet in space called Earth.
For a typical Darwinian explanation of how life originated, Dr. Wells directed me toward this documentary.
The chemical elements essential for life, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, were now in place. What was needed was a way of combining them. Perhaps the energy came from lightning. Whatever it was,
Excuse me?
whatever it was, energy managed to arrange these chemical ingredients in just the right way.
Whatever it was? I was hoping for something a little more scientific. The most popular idea has been that life emerged spontaneously from primordial soup. In 1953, Stanley Miller mixed water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen to simulate the early Earth's atmosphere. Then he ran electricity through it in an attempt to jumpstart life.
It's alive! It's alive!
It didn't work. While the initial results seemed promising, 50 years later, most serious scientists have abandoned this approach in favor of alternate theories. Prominent Darwinist Michael Roos attempted to explain one of them to me. He wasn't kidding. How did we get from an inorganic world to the world of the cell?
Well, one popular theory is that it might have started off on the backs of crystals.
My crystal power.
Molecules piggybacked on the back of crystals forming, and that this led to more and more complex. But of course, the nice thing about crystals is every now and then you get mistakes, mutations, and that this opens the way for natural selection.
But at one point there was not a living thing,
Yeah.
and then there was a living thing. How did that happen?
Well, that's just I just told you. And I don't see any reason why you shouldn't go from very simple to more and more complex to more and more
I
complex.
don't either, but I don't know how you get from mud to a living cell. That's my question.
Yes, well, I've told you.
I think it was on the
Try
back
one
of
more
crystal.
time.
On the backs of crystals.
Over the backs of crystals is at least one hypothesis, yes.
So that's your theory, and you think that is more likely and less far-fetched than intelligent design?
I think it is.
I wouldn't put Ben Stein's money on Dr. Roos's joyriding crystals, but it did make me wonder, what were the chances of life arising on its own?
It's been speculated that probably there would have to be a minimum of about 250 proteins to provide a minimal life function. If that's really true, then I think it's almost inconceivable that life could have happened in some simple step-by-step way.
Okay, so the simplest form of life requires at least 250 proteins to function. What's so difficult about that?
Welcome to the Casino of Life. Who wants to spin for a chance to win?
Oh, sure. I'll give it a shot. What do I win?
Take a look at this.
Huh? How about the world's first single-cell organism? This perfectly aligned string of proteins could be yours.
Now, take a spin.
I won.
Tina, tell him how many times he needs to do that to win the prize.
250.
That's right, folks, and all in the correct order.
But that's impossible.
We've heard that before, haven't we, Richard?
Come on, Mother Nature, do your thing. You stupid machine! I hate you!
Wow. 250 proteins for one living cell. And you have taught me how one protein is like
Really,
really complex.
yeah. One of those proteins is topoisomerase.
Oh my gosh. And collagen.
Collagen is not essential for life.
But it is a protein, so it represents the complexity that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Collagens are not like saying bacterias, but topoisomerase, if it's not essential, it's pretty close to being it. I mean, there's probably some creature out there that might be able to circumvent it, but it would have to do something alternatively to untangle the DNA.
Well, just the fact, who cares about if you have 250 proteins? You have to have DNA.
Oh, that too.
Oh, that too.
Oh, by the way, this sad story. There was a brief picture of Carolyn Crocker. Let's see if I can even find it.
Was that from the movie
Expelled?
Expelled. I saw that movie and I had forgotten everything that you just showed me. Wow.
Yeah, there was a very sad story because in that movie was Carolyn Crocker. Oh, here it is. Let me show you her picture. This is Carolyn Crocker. Dr. Carolyn Crocker. She was at George Mason University.
When you were there?
Yes, that's her. That's Dr. Carolyn Crocker. Tragic story. She questioned Darwinism and they disposed of her. And then she got blacklisted around the country. She never was able to go back to being a biologist. Tragedy. And yeah, early on when I saw that, I said, I got to fight this. This is so wrong. And I never stopped having a little bit of a chip on my shoulder from that. You know
where she is and what she's doing now?
No.
She was in the movie?
Yeah, she was in the movie. It's very sad. I almost was in the movie. They filmed me for the movie. I didn't make the final cut. My story wasn't as scandalous as hers. And there were people far more accomplished than I was that were in the movie. And our story was reported in the prestigious scientific journal Nature. And then this movie came out like 3 years later. So what had happened is our story was reported April 28th edition, 2005. 3 weeks later, she gives me a call. She said they fired me. Yeah, she was expelled. At the time, I was an engineer at MITRE Corporation, and I had at least had a job at that time. But so the other side plays dirty, and that's the world we live in, and it's in God's hands. She was married to a Christian minister, and people even in her own church, Truro Episcopal, were not supporting her. That was very painful. Now that I look back, it's kind of bad because one guy that she was very disappointed with, his daughter was someone I used to go out with. So, and I realized I should have never mentioned his name or her name. So,
sounds like you should get in touch with her and see what she's doing.
Yeah, it could be a painful thing. We've been in touch. We should pray for her. We should pray for Dr. Crocker. But the thing was, at that time, there was so much savagery in academia, and it's happening now. So what they did to her was terrible, but they're doing it now in academia on so many levels. And there, but for the grace of God, do any of us make it through? now they're enforcing all sorts of things on the college campuses, and it's sick. And now it's seeping into Christian seminaries and universities. So, but that's not the point of tonight's talk. I hope you did enjoy that clip of the video.
I want to see the whole thing again.
Play it again? Sure. All right. All right.
Evolutionary biology. We don't even know what a species is, for heaven's sakes.
So his theory is smoke, but elegant smoke.
There's a certain elegance to it, but I think Einstein had the appropriate remark. He preferred to leave elegance to his tailor.
A room full of smoke? That certainly wasn't what I was hearing from prominent Darwinists like Richard Dawkins.
Evolution is a fact. It's a fact which is established as securely as essentially any other fact that we have in science.
Richard Dawkins is so confident that evolution is a fact and that therefore God doesn't exist that he has devoted his entire life to spreading the evolution gospel.
I'm an atheist with respect to the Judeo-Christian God because there is not a shred of evidence in favor of the Judeo-Christian God. It is completely right to say that since the evidence for evolution is so absolutely, totally overwhelming, nobody who looks at it could possibly doubt that if they were sane and not stupid. So the only remaining possibility is that they're ignorant, and most people who don't believe in evolution are indeed ignorant.
But the people I spoke with weren't ignorant. They were highly credentialed scientists. So there had to be something else going on here. So you think the whole theory of evolution is false, or just certain parts of it?
Well, again, evolution is a slippery word. I would say minor changes within species happen. But Darwin didn't write a book called how existing species change over time. He wrote a book called The Origin of Species. He purported to show how this same process leads to new species. In fact, every species. And the evidence for that grand claim is, in my opinion, almost totally lacking.
How does Darwin or Darwinism say life began?
Well, he didn't know. And in fact, nobody knows. So Darwinism, strictly defined, starts after the origin of life and deals only with living things.
Well, how can there be a theory about life without a theory about how life began?
Well, a grand overarching evolutionary story, of course, does include the origin of life, but Darwin's theory doesn't begin until you have the first cell.
Well, does someone have a theory about how life began?
This is the story of a small planet in space called Earth.
For a typical Darwinian explanation of how life originated, Dr. Wells directed me toward this documentary.
The chemical elements essential for life, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, were now in place. What was needed was a way of combining them. Perhaps the energy came from lightning. Whatever it was.
Excuse me?
Whatever it was, energy managed to arrange these chemical ingredients in just the right way.
Whatever it was? I was hoping for something a little more scientific. The most popular idea has been that life emerged spontaneously from primordial soup. In 1953, Stanley Miller mixed water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen to simulate the early Earth's atmosphere. Then he ran electricity through it in an attempt to jumpstart life. It didn't work. While the initial results seemed promising, 50 years later, most serious scientists have abandoned this approach in favor of alternate theories. Prominent Darwinist Michael Roos attempted to explain one of them to me. He wasn't kidding. How did we get from an inorganic world to the world of the cell?
Well, one popular theory is that it might have started off on the backs of crystals.
My crystal ball.
Molecules piggybacked on the back of crystals forming, and that this led to more and more complex. But of course, the nice thing about crystals is every now and then you get mistakes, mutations, and that this opens the way for natural selection.
But at one point there was not a living thing.
Yeah.
And then there was a living thing. How did that happen?
Well, this is I just told you. And I don't see any reason why you shouldn't go from very simple to more and more complex to more and more complex.
I don't either, but I don't know how you get from mud to a living cell. That's my question.
Yes, well, I've told you.
I think it was on the
Try
back
one
of
more
crystal.
time.
On the backs of crystals.
On the backs of crystals is at least one hypothesis, yes.
So that's your theory, and you think that is more likely and less far-fetched than intelligent design?
I think it is.
I wouldn't put Ben Stein's money on Dr. Roos's joyriding crystals, but it did make me wonder, what were the chances of life arising on its own?
It's been speculated that probably there would have to be a minimum of about 250 proteins to provide minimal life function. If that's really true, then I think it's almost inconceivable that life could have happened in some simple step-by-step way.
Okay, so the simplest form of life requires at least 250 proteins to function. What's so difficult about that?
Welcome to the Casino of Life. Who wants to spin for a chance to win?
Oh, sure. I'll give it a shot. What do I win?
Take a look at this.
Huh? How about the world's first single-cell organism? This perfectly aligned string of proteins could be yours.
Now, take a spin.
I won.
Tina, tell him how many times he needs to do that to win the prize.
250.
That's right, folks, and all in the correct order.
But that's impossible.
We've heard that before, haven't we, Richard?
Come on, Mother Nature, do your thing. You stupid machine! I hate you!
We're talking about something.
Where are you, Sal? Well, good. Then I get to comment. There you are. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was grabbing something. I was getting a book that I wanted to share with you. I'm sorry.
Can I say something?
Yes.
It's going to seem a little bit unrelated in the beginning, but it's totally related. Okay, so bear with me. I just posted a video today about spiritual abuse tactics. Richard Dawkins just did them. Calling people who don't see the evidence, those of us who see the evidence and still can't see that evolution is true, are either crazy or stupid. That is spiritual abuse.
Or insane.
And
or wicked.
The guy who talked about piggybacking on crystals,
That's Michael Ruse.
he also did spiritual abuse tactics by saying, oh, well, I just told you, as if you were too stupid to follow what I was saying. You need me to repeat it. Oh my gosh. I mean, that just makes me angry.
Well, it's not. And then what they did to Carolyn Crocker, fired.
So like what you said,
They play hardball.
that's playing dirty.
They play dirty. And that's what the whole movie was about. All the people that were expelled. Guillermo Gonzalez. They shut down Robert Marks. They did that to William Dembski. And it's ugly out there what's going on.
That's really interesting because it wasn't that long ago that I heard some of our atheists friends saying that doesn't really happen. Have you heard them say that?
Oh, yeah. And, to be fair, it's not just about Christians. It's whatever. There's a lot of politics. People just play dirty for their own self-interests. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory. It's the culture. You know, like, I mean, you see it like where a girl will claim sexual harassment or discrimination and she knows it's not there, but it's jockeying for position. So there are all sorts of cross currents here, but it's become a culture of dishonesty and self-interest.
Well, you know, they make the case that it's the Christians in the power position and that we discriminate against. Have you heard this too?
Yeah, that's not really believable anymore, but back in 2005 it was for some people. The Christians were in power, but
Well, and I think that there's room for both to be true.
Yeah.
Because I know particularly some of the stories about gay and trans people being shunned would be very similar to what we would describe as, if we're a creationist and we don't buy the whole evolution bull crap, then we're shunned.
Well, I had some other comments. There was some funny, I love that Casino of Life. And when the guy sees, look what the prize you're going to get, and he sees that young lady. That was good.
And that actually, I know you're just the typical male, but actually, if you look at it from the whole point of this, you're talking about the origin of life. So you would want a whole lady. You would not want in the origin of life a cell by
All
itself.
right, guys, I got to confess. I mean, Cindy shared a picture of what she looked like at age 22. That was my reaction. That old man saw that. I was like, wow. I thought of your picture right when I saw that scene. I said, that's what I felt when I saw, Cindy was just looking through, showing me some of her family album and her, like she was showing me a picture of her and her dad.
Show my picture of my dad. If you have, you still have that picture of my dad?
Yes, I saw this. Of course, I didn't see him. I just like, who's that girl? Like, boing. So, all right, let me see if I. Oh my goodness, I think I have it even in my pictures album.
And I also was thinking, Sal, about, I think it was Wells made the point that Darwin did not write a book called How One Species Evolves into Another Species. He wrote a book called The Origin of Life. And yet the book doesn't talk about the origin of life. That was classic, don't you think?
It's the origin of species. There you go.
That's me and my dad.
Yeah.
I don't remember why we were talking about my dad and I showed you that picture.
Yeah, we were just talking about our families.
Yeah. My dad is a part of my testimony because he's the one who used to bring me to national parks. And I would see the beauty of creation. And then when we drove home back to the city, you would see how the humans wrecked God's beautiful, pristine creation. And that's when I saw God.
And so I said I'd say
So the casino.
How about the way Richard Dawkins is kicking the slot machines at the end? That was so funny.
How did they get his voice? That sounded just like him.
I know, it's so funny. That was so funny. So
It's really actually not, though, how he lies.
I know. It was
He
kind of.
lies so convincingly. It's just like Ken Hovind. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. How many people has he deceived?
Millions. In fact, his net worth is estimated at $150 million.
Dawkins?
He's filthy rich. And he's so rich, he started a foundation. I kid you not. Since we're talking about Dawkins, let me see.
Excuse me.
Um,
From his book sales?
television deals. Yeah. Yeah, he was an intelligent. Okay. This is from Okay, this is so funny. Okay. He's a cult leader. And people don't like admitting it. But he has a following. So, you can join Richard Dawkins' cult if you're willing to pay $500,000.
What?
My man in the pub was at the very low end of what believers will do and pay for. The Richard Dawkins website offers followers the chance to join the Reason Circle, which, like Dante's Hell, is arranged in concentric circles. For $85 a month, you get discounts on his merchandise and the chance to meet Richard Dawkins' Foundation for Reason and Science personalities, not even him. Obviously, that's not enough to meet the man himself. For that, you pay $250 a month, or $5,000 a year for the chance to attend an event where he will speak. When you compare this to the going rate for other charismatic preachers, it does seem on the high side.
Wait a minute.
The Pentecostal evangelist
preachers?
Luke Morris. What?
Charismatic preachers?
Yeah. The Pentecostal evangelist Morris Cirillo, for example, charges only $30 a month to become a member of God's victorious army, which is bringing healing and deliverance to the world. And from Cirillo, you get free DVDs, not just discounts. But the $85 a month just touches the hem of rationality. After the neophyte passes through the successively more expensive Darwin circle and then the evolution circles, he attains the innermost circle where for $100,000 a year or more, he gets to have a private breakfast or lunch with Richard Dawkins and a reserved table at an invitation-only circle event with Richard as well, as all the benefits listed above. So he still gets a discount on his Richard Dawkins t-shirt saying, "Religion, together we can find a cure."
Is this for real?
Huh?
Is this for real?
As far as I know, people have been pointing it out. Okay, the guy's very rich, okay? This is how you get some big donations. And
Donations? Is he a non-profit?
He has a foundation. Okay. Now,
in other words, that is a false front for a money scheme, just like Kent Hovind.
It's a personality cult. Has nothing to do with science.
Get a 501c3 and you can get free money.
Okay, the website suggests that donations of up to $500,000 a year will be accepted for the privilege of eating with him once a year. At this level of contribution, you can become a member of something called the Magic of Reality Circle. The Magic of Reality? I don't think any irony is intended. At this point, it is obvious to everyone except the participants that what we have here is a religion without the good bits. Dawkins is the founder of a religious cult.
Wait a
Atheist.
minute.
Ah.
Wait a minute. I have to throw a tizzy and get really red in the face. Evolution is not a religion. Who am I imitating for 500 points? Who am I imitating? We just debated him.
Aaron Ra.
Evolution is not a religion.
Dawkins is the founder of a religious cult. Atheist? Ha! There's nothing more laughable than that. Dawkins believed in a god named Dick Dawkins.
Oh, Sal, we're in big trouble now.
Are we having fun?
Yes. At his expense. I hope he doesn't see the show and sue us. Oh my gosh, Sal. That's stunning.
You see, I've been studying religions and what motivates people. There's a, if people reject God, they're going to find religion in some other way. And Richard Dawkins, they reject Jesus. They have to find a Messiah. To them, Richard Dawkins is the Messiah figure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's the same thing. He's the anointed one. Glad I could make you laugh.
Oh my gosh. You sure did. Oh my gosh, Sal.
Are you having fun?
They can't, just like the last line that you read, it's clear to everyone except for the participants. Oh my gosh, I'm going to Google that as soon as we get off here and see if it's true. $500,000 a year to have breakfast with him.
Well, he probably did have a big donor. One of his supporters was Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm sure it was. If he's rich, he's got to have plenty. Wow.
And we saw Dawkins on his private jet.
What do you mean we?
The world saw pictures of Richard Dawkins on Epstein's private jet.
Going somewhere?
That island of all the young girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry I had to put.
Sal.
Yeah.
How young? Is this the guy that was?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Sex offender and financier.
Yep. I'm sorry to say it. And you know what? You blanked out on me, Cindy. What's the matter?
I'm in Wiki right now.
Okay. So you remember that Darwin fish?
Yes.
Okay. There's a story behind it. There are some.
He's a freaking pedophile. Epstein procured many women and children, which he and his associates sexually abused.
There are some very vulgar ones. I'll give you one. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry to have to show it, but.
Convicted in 2008 by a Florida state court of procuring a child for prostitution.
Yeah. That's Jeff Epstein. Okay,
He only got 1 year.
He eventually got. He died in prison. and we don't know, under mysterious circumstances. People have theorized he had the goods on a lot of people, like Prince Andrew, maybe Bill Clinton. All right. Can I see
It
your
says that the cause of death was suicide by hanging.
suspicious?
I've heard that if you go to jail for child molestation, that they will kill you.
We think there was political people wanted him dead because so many people had gone to his. He had,
So he wouldn't sing.
yeah, he could probably blackmail a lot of people given all the stuff that he, it's kind of like a deal with the devil. It really was. Bring them to that island. They have a little bit of funny business, and he knows about it, and he'll say, "Hey,
He's probably got cameras.
yeah, so you pay me some
So
money."
Richard Dawkins went there.
Was on his jet. We don't know if he actually landed there. Now, Richard has actually put an essay out. He said, we need to improve the way we think about ourselves. If you're married, you should be free to go find other women. He wrote an essay that way. He was encouraging, that fidelity to a spouse is old, that's just a restriction that needs to go. That's obsolete. Pretty sure he may have a mistress somewhere. People have been saying he has a mistress. So maybe he's had a few.
Why would you want only one?
Yeah, for $135 million, you could have one in every town. I shouldn't laugh.
If monogamy isn't useful in a marriage, why would it be? Why would you only want one monogamous mistress?
Yeah. So no. Okay. Now I'm going to connect something for you. If you can show me your face again, or
this very quickly got extremely serious and no longer funny. I'm looking up. Richard Dawkins defends, quote, mild pedophilia again and again in an interview in The Atlantic. In the Daily Beast, Richard Dawkins said pedophilia is okay.
I didn't know that. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I never knew about that. I wish I didn't. As dastardly as he is, that involves victims. I did not want to hear that. So, I'm sorry. Apologies to the viewers. I have to show something that's related to Epstein and evolution. So, you've probably seen the Darwin fish. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
And you could see this one's particularly, it's sickening. I just have to show it, okay?
Yeah.
And the origin of that, Jeff's Epstein's mistress, who was kind of the madam for all, recruiting all the young girls, was Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell had a sister. And Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, I'll get her name. Her sister is Christine Maxwell. Christine Maxwell was married to She was married to someone. Um, that was the author of the Darwin Fish, and he was a fraudster, and they've scrubbed the name of that guy from the Wikipedia entry on her. And let me just look here, Roger Molina. No, it was another Max. He was tied to Christine Maxwell, and they've Christine Maxwell. Let me look at this. Christine.
Sal, while you're looking that up, I mentioned earlier that I had posted something about spiritual abuse today on my YouTube channel.
Al Seckles. Isabel Maxwell, husband. Isabel Maxwell. I'm sorry, it's not Christine, it's Isabel Maxwell. So let me look at this. Isabel Maxwell and Ish. Yes. So it's Isabel Maxwell. She is Ghislaine. Younger sister is Ghislaine. So Ghislaine is married to Jeffrey Epstein. And there's a Christine Maxwell and then a Isabel Maxwell. Isabel Maxwell was married to Al Seckel. Al Seckel, he may have faked his death. We don't know. He is just a really sketchy person, and he was involved in the free thought movement, this atheist movement. He created a art. Yeah. He was involved in with the, pretty sure it's financial fraud, and then he disappeared. People have speculated he faked his death or someone murdered him. We don't know. Just strange circumstances. He's the author of the Darwin Fish. Jeffrey Epstein paid him to design that. So there's some very dark forces that created that emblem, this promotion of this secular religion, and also desecration of the Christian symbol. See, that's a deliberate desecration of the Christian symbol, the Darwin fish. And so it has some really dark roots.
Well, I thought they were just about identical. Aren't they?
Well, the Christian symbol is the ichthay, the fish. And they put the word Darwin in there and put legs on the fish to symbolize evolution. It's a deliberate desecration of the Christian faith with evolutionary theory. And that's why, if evolutionary theory is destroyed on the science, then you could see it's tied to, evolution and anti-Christianism are deeply tied together. Even though they're Christians that are evolutionists.
It's only because they're taught in school and they haven't figured it out yet.
You can't be an atheist and believe in special creation. You're sort of forced to believe in evolution. These things happen naturally because their alternative is a god, unless you want to appeal to space aliens, but still. So there are some very, very, very dark ties of some of what is motivating all the anti-Christianism out there. So I'm sorry we were laughing so hard earlier about how silly it is, but it is pretty dark.
It is very dark. And I'm afraid that there are ties in high places.
There are ties in spiritual places too. in heavenly places. This is,
Yeah, it's a spiritual battle, but it's also in humans. But what I was going to say is I discovered a lady named Rachel Den Hollander, I think. She was molested as a child. They used spiritual abuse tactics on her to silence her, to shame her, to guilt trip her into being quiet. It worked for 16 years. After 16 years, a newspaper article came out alleging that her abuser had been abusing other people. And so she took that as her opportunity to speak out for the first time in 16 years. And thankfully for her, the statute of limitations had been lifted and they received her police report. She later she was able to prosecute 16 years later, and over 250 victims came with her. And they had like a landslide victory. The man is now, his name is Larry Nasser. He's now serving life. But 2 huge organizations were involved in covering for him. One of them was Michigan State University. One of them was the Olympiad Gymnastics. Just last year, some of the victims that were victimized after reports went to the FBI are now suing the FBI. They just filed in June of last year against the FBI.
Wow.
So that's actually 3 big organizations: a state university, an Olympic gymnastic organization of some kind, and now the FBI involved in covering for child molestation. You're going to have to do a trigger alert on this video. A warning, not child friendly.
Yeah. Well, curiosity killed the cat. We just talked on Richard Dawkins, and I mentioned the name Epstein. That opened a whole can of worms. We got on that topic because it's like, where did Dawkins get all this money? He has rich people that have money that hate the Christian faith and gave him money.
Well, and what you're pointing out is it's not about science.
No. So a lot of these people who have lived, who are very wealthy and lived wicked lives, they're using their money to try to destroy Christianity. They're happy to donate lots of money. It's shocking how much money they're willing to donate to destroy Christianity and change culture to reflect their values.
So basically, what we are suspecting is that Dawkins is a paid liar.
I don't know, and I don't care at this point. It's not going to change really one way of how I'm going to do business. The way to fight this is just to be very good at science, and it will move forward. And I'm seeing that. That's why I said I know people that had become Christians. They weren't preached at. They just studied cell biology. It starts to become at this, maybe 40, 50 years ago, it was a little easier. But now the textbooks that you see, and I talked to some people that are Christians and studying, but they said, how can you not believe? Look at this. And
That was a really good clip. Who was the scientist who looked at it and said, you'd need 250?
that's Walter Bradley. So when you're calling me and said, Sal, are you there? I was trying to grab Walter Bradley's book. He is a distinguished professor of engineering. And he had written a book on origin of life because he has some specialty in that, because there's a lot of chemistry involved in life. He had kind of the appropriate skill set. He's also brilliant, but he's a very devout Christian, very devout Christian. He had actually started the crisis pregnancy centers, and he devised things to also help the poor people in Africa, like have clean water or something. Just very accomplished. He's just a model individual. I saw him in Dallas 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, just sitting beside William Dembski, and I saw two of them, and I went up to him and I said, sir, thank you for your book. I nearly left the Christian faith. Your book, Mystery of Life's Origins, helped keep me in the faith.
Really?
Yeah, and he almost
Did
teared
you
up.
find it?
He was practically tearing up. Huh?
Did you find it so you can put it up on the screen?
No, I got a book from Robert Marks. He gave it to me as a gift. You'll actually, oh, by the way, for the viewers, I have something, the Discovery Institute Mind Matters AI. Oh, you're doing that to me again.
Mystery of Life's Origins. So you can put it up on the screen.
Well, it's another book. It's about him. That's the book he wrote. There's a book about him that talks about his life.
His testimony?
Yes. Can you put yourself back on the screen?
Yes,
it's really annoying when you keep doing that to me.
I'm sorry, but
it's like, I don't care about, the message is I don't really want to talk to Sal. I'm more interested in something else.
No, that's not the message. The message is I wanted to see that book so that people could, I'm trying to get back, sorry. There I am.
Thank you.
Because it was a significant book for you and it might help other people. But they can look at it, Google it too.
So there is this website called Mind Matters, and I think it's somewhat sponsored by the Discovery Institute. Mind Matters. And let's see, winning and losing strategies at the casino. And said, can you beat casinos at their own game? Sometimes. Don Johnson beat Atlantic City casinos for over $15 million during a 6-month period in 2011. Find out the ins and outs of casino gambling and card counting as Robert J. Marks interviews gambling expert Sal Cordova.
Sal!
In this intriguing podcast, you'll discover how artificial intelligence plays poker, the strategies Christian missionaries use to make money in casinos, and the distinction between a whale and a ploppy, techniques for winning at craps, and much more. So let's see, Mind Matters, and this is so funny.
How is this
And-
promoting godliness?
So this is okay. This is he this is at a Christian university that we were recording this. So, and I was for a full month on the Mind Matters AI blog podcast. He's an expert in artificial intelligence and all sorts of evolutionary computing, etc. I mean, just stacks of books. Very accomplished, distinguished professor. And he just thought that side of my life was really interesting. And he said, "Oh, Sal, why don't we record this?" And we recorded the session in about 2.5 hours. And he had a whole month of podcasts, whole month of weekly podcasts.
Teaching people how to be a good gambler?
Yeah, we're talking about it. Yeah.
So.
We okay, there's a little bit of bad boy in me, you know that.
Well, it was your former lifestyle. You don't gamble anymore, right?
Not in the casinos, no.
Yeah.
Life is a whole gamble, actually. It's making measured decisions about risks. So actually, I mean, I've talked to you a lot, and I said, Cindi, it's about risk management. Do you want to spend this much to do that, this much to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of bad boy in me, not much.
Well, we all have it. How did we get from where we were?
I have no idea. We were talking about Walter Bradley, the Honorable Christian Man. And it was Robert Marks who interviewed me for that show. He gave me that book. It was his gift to me.
He gave you Robert Bradley's book?
Walter Bradley. Bradley, the book about Walter Bradley. It was written by other people because he's such an excellent Christian person. So Walter Bradley, how we got there was we were watching that Casino of Life, and he was the one who said 250 proteins. That's who he is.
Well, now I'm thinking about if it's his testimony. I want it on my testimony.
Okay, hang on. Let me see if I could find. Let me do the searching.
I posted Keith Green's testimony yesterday, and a couple of people have really enjoyed it.
Here it is. It's on Mang. Okay, so remember that website, Mind Matters AI? It talked about Sal Cordova, this bad boy gambler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In contrast.
Wait a minute. I'm remembering an old commercial back from my day. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Okay. So, all right. So if we have to describe I'm sorry, let's put this Mind Matters AI. Okay. That was just terrible, that Darwin fish. This is disgusting. I'm sorry about that. We were talking about that earlier. So you have Mind Matters AI, and they talk about the bad boy Sal Cordova. All right. It's Mind Matters AI, and they talk about this bad boy Sal Cordova. But then the same website talks about Walter Bradley. He's the good boy.
Okay. So they have a little write-up on him.
Finding a life for a greater purpose. And there is a book for a greater purpose, The Life and Legacy of Walter Bradley.
Well, I was looking for a YouTube video that
Walter Bradley made a deal with God. He would unashamedly share his faith with students and faculty, and he would not let academic ambition prevent him from giving his faith and family the time they deserve. The day he could no longer keep that deal, he would leave the academy. He never had to. From his days as a determined graduate assistant sharing his love for Jesus with his first class to becoming one of the most respected engineering professors in academia, Walter Bradley remained a man of integrity, dedicated to truth and love. He's made a difference in myriad ways, from leading a small Bible study for students in his home to defending intelligent design before large crowds of his academic peers. He's equally comfortable performing groundbreaking research for NASA, serving as an expert witness in the courtroom, or empowering people in Africa with appropriate technologies. Through it all, one thing has remained true. Walter Bradley made a crucial difference for good in countless lives. In For a Greater Purpose, The Life and Legacy of Walter Bradley, authors Robert Marks and William Dembski detail the story of this remarkable man whose passion for God, science, higher education, and human empowerment provides an excellent model for someone who integrates faith and learning. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
See, Cindy, I told you, I'm so happy to kind of introduce you to a different crowd of people.
So he was able to teach as a professor in a public university and share his faith with his students without getting fired.
Yes, he was that talented. There are people that are that talented and excellent. It's like the university, it's like they had to kind of tolerate it, because you fire him, you're losing a great professor. And then the irony is he went to a Christian university, and they were giving him a hard time at the Christian university because Baylor was starting to cave into the Darwinists. And that was the point of the movie Expelled. So even though it was Robert Marks in the movie Expelled that was getting a lot of flack, it was also Walter Bradley they were trying to censure, which is disgusting because he was an excellent human being and professor, distinguished. So is Robert Marks.
And was doing fine in a secular university, but go to a Christian one and he gets persecuted.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sobering. It's the most disappointing thing I ever saw. And other ID proponents and creationists have said this, that they said the most disappointing thing is we went to universities claiming to be Christian. We tried to talk about a creator. We tried to talk about intelligent design, and the faculty would have none of it.
That reminds me, when I was first looking for another mission field before I came here, I was going to go on college campuses and be part of college student ministries.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow me to talk about creationism.
Yep. I found that out too. InterVarsity. I one time criticized Darwin when I was giving a talk before a Christian audience. The next year they said, don't ever do that again. I was livid. You're going to try to share the Bible in Genesis. You're not going to talk about this. And I said, okay. And this has happened numerous times. And I said, this is why a lot of bad happens in the church. You don't want to, you've turned the church into a social club, and you're not going to deal with controversial issues. And you're going to just, that's the most.
It starts at the house of God.
Yeah. And then sadly, people like Kent Hovind on the creationist side kind of destroying creationism that way. So it's amazing this has moved forward. It moves forward because the facts are on our side.
Mm-hmm.
It's moved forward despite all the resistance. So you're yawning.
I'm sorry. I'm not bored. It's midnight here. That's all.
Okay, so we're going to do a little molecular and cell biology. I'm going to retitle the video. It's not going to be about just Sal and Cindi shoot the breeze. I had such dreams for us talking about molecular and cell biology. But
with nerd agony.
We didn't go there. We were having fun. So we'll close on a sour note here. What is state your version of the central dogma in molecular biology, and then we'll be done.
I thought you were going to show me another video.
Do you want me to? I can.
Yes.
Okay. Let me find one.
Anything but restating the central dogma of molecular biology. Okay, let me see if I can figure that out. DNA transcribes to RNA, which translates to proteins.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't DNA consist of proteins?
No, it's made of nucleic acids.
Nucleic acids. But nucleic acids are just as complex as proteins, right?
Okay, a nucleic acid is like an alphabetic letter. So DNA is made of these alphabetic letters. A protein is made of amino acids, and the amino acid's like an alphabetic letter for a protein. And a protein typically has average 430 amino acids on average. Now, topoisomerase has like 1,500. So there's some very much shorter, some very long. The average is about 430.
Amino acids in a protein.
Right.
But my point was that, Ben Stein was talking about, the movie we just watched was talking about 200 proteins in a single cell. But if proteins come from DNA, I mean, that's complex enough as it is, but DNA itself, the nucleic acids are complex. And the way they're arranged in the DNA helix is also excruciatingly complex. So it's an understatement of the problem. Even when you say 250 proteins are required for a simple life form, you got to give them the DNA. Even though it's a huge problem, it's a huge understatement of the problem. Am I missing something?
No. We haven't even talked about the carbohydrates and lipids, and you need those too.
Those are not part of DNA?
No, but they're part of the cell. The cell is made of 4 major groups of molecules: the nucleic acids, which make up the DNA and RNA, the amino acids and proteins. The amino acids make the proteins, and then you have the carbohydrates that are essential, and then the lipids. For example, an important lipid is the cell wall. We haven't even talked about the cell wall. The cell wall is made of lipids, phospholipids. So
carbs and lipids are other molecules.
Other classes of molecules, and those are very hard to synthesize. So when
my heavens. So the problem is just astronomically understated.
And one of the problems is, if you're trying to cook a lipid, you need one recipe to make it versus one to make a nucleic acid. You have to compartmentalize the reactions. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And James Tour was trying to point that out. He said, okay, you have a recipe for a lipid, then you're not going to make an amino acid at the same time or any of these other molecules. And so you have to have all these,
in the same space, because a cell is very small. So you'd have to manufacture 4 different things requiring 4 different recipes all in one cell.
And have it compartmentalized. You see, the cell is very good at compartmentalizing reactions. And in a soup, that's just not going to happen. And he was pointing that out. He said, the problems just get worse and worse and worse.
That's what I'm starting to see.
The best thing he said was, has anyone resurrected a dead cell? Like he said, just take a cell and poke it. Now try to get try to resuscitate it. He said, we can't even do that.
Because he's talking about if you had all the parts, you still can't make the cell.
Yeah.
So even if you have all the parts perfectly arranged as a living cell, except for now it's dead, you still can't bring it to life.
No.
It's not the parts. The parts is not the issue. And a lightning bolt's not going to do it. A lightning bolt's going to fry it.
Right. So, okay, I found a video you found, and let's play it.
Okay.
This is yours. This is Cindy's. So I'll have to go ahead and mute your mic.
I don't remember finding any videos.
Here is a cell, the basic unit of all living tissue. In most human cells, there is a structure called the nucleus. The nucleus contains the genome. In humans, the genome is split between 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each chromosome contains a long strand of DNA, tightly packaged around proteins called histones. Within the DNA are sections called genes. These genes contain the instructions for making proteins. When a gene is switched on, an enzyme called RNA polymerase attaches to the start of the gene. It moves along the DNA, making a strand of messenger RNA out of free bases in the nucleus. The DNA code determines the order in which the free bases are added to the messenger RNA. This process is called transcription. Before the messenger RNA can be used as a template for the production of proteins, it needs to be processed. This involves removing and adding sections of RNA. The messenger RNA then moves out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Protein factories in the cytoplasm, called ribosomes, bind to the messenger RNA. The ribosome reads the code in the messenger RNA to produce a chain made up of amino acids. There are 20 different types of amino acid. Transfer RNA molecules carry the amino acids to the ribosome. The messenger RNA is read 3 bases at a time. As each triplet is read, a transfer RNA delivers the corresponding amino acid. This is added to a growing chain of amino acids. Once the last amino acid has been added, the chain folds into a complex 3D shape to form the protein.
Protein synthesis, translation. Inside the body, the process of translation occurs within every single cell. Each cell has a nucleus. After transcription, mRNAs move out of the nucleus and enter the cytoplasm. This mRNA strand acts as a template for protein synthesis. Present in the cytoplasm is an enzyme, amino-acyl tRNA synthetase. The enzyme macromolecule has 2 binding sites. One site recognizes the amino acid methionine. This is followed by the binding of the ATP molecule and release of pyrophosphate, resulting in activation of amino acid. Finally, the tRNA and the activated amino acid bind together. This amino-acylated tRNA is known as met-tRNA and is released from the enzyme. This marks the commencement of first stage of protein synthesis, the initiation stage. During the initiation stage, a small subunit of a ribosome binds to the mRNA strand. The mRNA strand is made up of codons, which are sequences of 3 bases. Then the ribosome subunit moves along the mRNA in 5' to 3' direction until it recognizes the AUG codon or the initiation codon. At this point, met-tRNA possessing the anticodon UAC pairs up with the AUG codon of the mRNA. Then a large subunit of ribosome combines with a small ribosomal subunit. The large subunit shows 3 sites: the acceptor site or the A site, the peptidyl site or the P site, the exit site or the E site. This whole unit forms the initiation complex. This is followed by the elongation stage. During this stage, another tRNA carrying molecule of an amino acid approaches the mRNA ribosome complex and fits in the A site. Then a bond is formed between methionine and the amino acid molecule on the tRNA. As a result, met-tRNA becomes deacylated. The ribosome then advances a distance of 1 codon and the deacylated tRNA shifts to the E site from where it dissociates. Meanwhile, another tRNA carrying an amino acid molecule attaches to the A site. This is followed by the binding of the amino acid molecules. Repetition of this process leads to the formation of an amino acid chain. This event is called elongation. Finally, when the UAG codon or the stop codon reaches the A site, elongation is terminated. Termination is the last stage of protein synthesis. The chain of amino acid molecules is released from the ribosome. This released amino acid chain is the protein, and this part of protein synthesis is known as translation. Then the tRNA detaches from the mRNA. Ribosome detaches and dissociates into its small and large subunits. Summary. Protein synthesis shows that the first stage involves the binding of met-tRNA to mRNA and the small subunit of the ribosome. The larger subunit of ribosome then combines with the small subunit. Second stage is the elongation stage. In this stage, the incoming amino acyl tRNA fits in the A site. Then a bond is formed between methionine and the amino acid molecule on the tRNA. The process is repeated until a chain of amino acid molecules is formed. The last stage of protein synthesis is the termination stage. When the ribosome reaches the stop codon UAG, elongation stops and the newly formed amino acid chain, which is the protein macromolecule, detaches from the ribosome. Subsequently, ribosomal subunits along with the tRNA dissociate from the mRNA.
In order for our bodies to function, we need to supply them with a variety of nutrients we get from our diet. Our bodies cannot use the food as it is when it enters our digestive system. The process of chemical digestion uses different proteins and enzymes to break down the food particles into usable nutrients our cells can absorb. And where are the instructions to manufacture these and all the different types of proteins we need to stay alive? The instructions to make proteins are contained in our DNA. DNA contains genes. A gene is a continuous string of nucleotides containing a region that codes for an RNA molecule. This region begins with a promoter and ends in a terminator. Genes also contain regulatory sequences that can be found near the promoter or at a more distant location. For some genes, the encoded RNA is used to synthesize a protein in a process called gene expression. For these genes, expression can be divided into two processes, transcription and translation. In eukaryotic cells, transcription occurs in the nucleus, where DNA is used as a template to make messenger RNA. Then in translation, which occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell, the information contained in the messenger RNA is used to make a polypeptide. During transcription, the DNA in the gene is used as a template to make a messenger RNA strand with the help of the enzyme RNA polymerase. This process occurs in 3 stages: initiation, elongation, and termination. During initiation, the promoter region of the gene functions as a recognition site for RNA polymerase to bind. This is where the majority of gene expression is controlled, by either permitting or blocking access to this site by the RNA polymerase. Binding causes the DNA double helix to unwind and open. Then during elongation, the RNA polymerase slides along the template DNA strand. As the complementary bases pair up, the RNA polymerase links nucleotides to the 3' end of the growing RNA molecule. Once the RNA polymerase reaches the terminator portion of the gene, the messenger RNA transcript is complete, and the RNA polymerase, the DNA strand, and the messenger RNA transcript dissociate from each other. The strand of messenger RNA that is made during transcription includes regions called exons that code for a protein, and non-coding sections called introns. In order for the messenger RNA to be used in translation, the non-coding introns need to be removed, and modifications such as a 5' cap and a 3' poly A tail are added. This process is called intron splicing and is performed by a complex made up of proteins and RNA called a spliceosome. This complex removes the intron segments and joins the adjacent exons to produce a mature messenger RNA strand that can leave the nucleus through a nuclear pore and enter the cytoplasm to begin translation. How is the information in the mature messenger RNA strand translated into a protein? The nitrogenous bases are grouped into 3 letter codes called codons. The genetic code includes 64 codons. Most codons code for specific amino acids. There are 4 special codons, 1 that codes for start and 3 that code for stop. Translation begins with the messenger RNA strand binding to the small ribosomal subunit upstream of the start codon. Each amino acid is brought to the ribosome by a specific transfer RNA molecule. The type of amino acid is determined by the anticodon sequence of the transfer RNA. Complementary base pairing occurs between the codon of the messenger RNA and the anticodon of the transfer RNA. After the initiator transfer RNA molecule binds to the start codon, the large ribosomal subunit binds to form the translation complex, and initiation is complete. In the large ribosomal subunit, there are 3 distinct regions called the E, P, and A sites. During elongation, individual amino acids are brought to the messenger RNA strand by a transfer RNA molecule through complementary base pairing of the codons and anticodons. Each anticodon of a transfer RNA molecule corresponds to a particular amino acid. A charged transfer RNA molecule binds to the A site, and a peptide bond forms between its amino acid and the one attached to the transfer RNA molecule at the P site. The complex slides down one codon to the right, where the now uncharged transfer RNA molecule exits from the E site, and the A site is open to accept the next transfer RNA molecule. Elongation will continue until a stop codon is reached. A release factor binds to the A site at a stop codon, and the polypeptide is released from the transfer RNA in the P site. The entire complex dissociates and can reassemble to begin the process again at initiation. The purpose of translation is to produce polypeptides quickly and accurately. After dissociation, the polypeptide may need to be modified before it is ready to function. Modifications take place in different organelles for different proteins. In order for a digestive enzyme to be secreted into the stomach or intestines, the polypeptide is translated into the endoplasmic reticulum, modified as it passes through the Golgi, then secreted using a vesicle through the plasma membrane of the cell into the lumen of the digestive tract. Proteins are needed for most physiological functions of the body to occur properly, such as breaking down food particles in digestion, and the processes of transcription and translation make the production of proteins possible.
The job of this mRNA is to carry the gene's message from the DNA out of the nucleus to a ribosome for production of the particular protein that this gene codes for. There can be several million ribosomes in a typical eukaryotic cell. These complex catalytic machines use the mRNA copy of the genetic information to assemble amino acid building blocks into the three-dimensional proteins that are essential for life. Let's see how it works. The ribosome is composed of one large and one small subunit that assemble around the messenger RNA, which then passes through the ribosome like a computer tape. The amino acid building blocks, that's the small glowing red molecules, are carried into the ribosome attached to specific transfer RNAs. That's the larger green molecules, also referred to as tRNA. The small subunit of the ribosome positions the mRNA so that it can be read in groups of 3 letters known as a codon. Each codon on the mRNA matches a corresponding anticodon on the base of a transfer RNA molecule. The larger subunit of the ribosome removes each amino acid and joins it onto the growing protein chain. As the mRNA is ratcheted through the ribosome, the mRNA sequence is translated into an amino acid sequence. There are 3 locations inside the ribosome, designated the A site, the P site, and the E site. The addition of each amino acid is a 3-step cycle. First, the tRNA enters the ribosome at the A site and is tested for a codon-anticodon match with the mRNA. Next, provided there is a correct match, the tRNA is shifted to the P site, and the amino acid it carries is added to the end of the amino acid chain. The mRNA is also ratcheted on 3 nucleotides or 1 codon. Thirdly, the spent tRNA is moved to the E site and then ejected from the ribosome to be recycled. As the protein synthesis proceeds, the finished chain emerges from the ribosome. It folds up into a precise shape determined by the exact order of amino acids. Thus, the central dogma explains how the 4-letter DNA code is, quite literally, turned into flesh and blood.
So that was 3 different videos showing the same thing in slightly different ways.
Yes, it's actually 4 videos.
Yeah.
Even that almost put me to sleep, but I tried to pay attention. Because,
Ditto.
I'm being actually very serious. It is helpful to know that this is how you begin to learn the names, because even I was forgetting the names of all the parts. So they're talking about the
It's really hard to follow.
yes. Can you imagine doing this in the old-fashioned way where you just had printed text? Remember, I said old-fashioned biochemistry, they gave you a parts list, and you say this part connects to this part connects to this part connects to this part connects to this part connects to. I mean, if you think about it, that's the structure of everything here.
It's
And you're
in a phone book.
yes, it's agony. But it really does not, I've people said, should I study evolutionary biology to be able to refute it? I said, don't. You're going to waste your time. You're better off watching this video. Spend the whole day watching it over and over and over and over and over.
It's
And
like
some of my old,
don't study the counterfeit, study the real thing.
Yeah, study the real thing. And when you get good at this, it's going to multiply your witness, because people, they'll sense that it will communicate to people that you've invested time studying this. That says something,
It's going to take a lot of repetition to understand all of that.
So even I got just one piece that I forgot: the RNA polymerase. RNA polymerase. And that's the thing.
No. The green thing? No.
It was different depending on the video. It's the thing that attaches to the DNA. So remember, in the central dogma, some DNA transcribes to RNA. The transcription machinery involves that RNA polymerase. It's reading the DNA and then making RNAs. And that's an amazing machine. Oh, by the way, RNA polymerase is a protein. So now you know some of the you can't have life without an RNA polymerase. So
you can't make a protein without a protein.
Right. And so now you're seeing the basis. You need an RNA polymerase. That's probably more important than the topoisomerase. So you at least got 2 parts there, right there, that are very, very important.
It's just impossible. And if they want to say, oh, well, you don't know how it happened, and so therefore God, how come you don't come to that conclusion?
Okay, so when Dawkins is saying you're ignorant, stupid, or insane, I just yeah, you look at that.
That is an abuse tactic.
Yeah.
It's designed to silence. It's designed to discredit. Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I was studying biochemistry, and the professor was just you could see there are all these things that are marvelous. And he said, this is just amazing how this is designed. And he said, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say that. The whole class laughed, because it's so obvious. We just don't talk that way. So a lot of them may not be creationists. They'll believe in intelligence. I've talked to people that are like these theistic evolutionists. Some of them said, it's obvious God had to guide the process. I still believe we evolved, but it happened with God helping the process. That's a lot of people, including Michael Behe. And I'd say that's not totally terrible. At least they're acknowledging something had to make it happen. So why don't I finish off with one kind of poetic version of all that? This is a poetic version of it. It's just 4 minutes and then we'll close up. see. All right. This is about cell parts. Okay.
It has nothing to do with you don't understand, therefore God. It has everything to do with we do understand, therefore God. Machines require a machinist. Is that like a little advertisement for a class?
Yes. But then he just makes the advertisement for the class. There's nothing beyond that. He made it for teachers to kind of just get the students a little more interested. It's a nice way to open it, but then you hit the books and it's not quite so fun. But I think it's still important because one has to have a little glimpse to see all these wonders, and then you're a little bit more motivated. Because in the old days, it was just like reading phone books. At least now you have a little taste that this has a higher meaning.
And it's like a big picture before you zoom in.
Yeah.
It's still really hitting me what you said about James' tour. If you had all those parts and you had it all properly arranged, because it used to be a living cell and you just puncture it with a pin and kill it, you still have everything all in place. But that invisible thing known as life, how do you get it in there?
See, this is what makes me laugh. Is he's absolutely right. So what if Fumduck gets a few molecules here or there? He said, I'll even give you the whole cell minus just a little few pieces. You're not gonna be able to resurrect it. So why do you think it's gonna happen from all that primordial soup?
Life only comes from life.
But you see,
hence Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life.
and the thing that, when I first saw that, they said life only comes from life, or a cell comes from a pre-existing cell. We kind of knew it as a principle, but now we know exactly why that is, because of the level of complexity is so high. It's like, yeah, now it's clear why that's a law. You can call it a law of nature because that level of complexity will not arise spontaneously. We know it now in terms of the physics and chemistry.
And even if it did, you couldn't make it come alive.
Well, we finished on a good note. I'll meet you backstage, and we can talk a little bit more before we finish up for the night. I'll give you the last word before I play our finishing credits. Your favorite song.
Should we pray?
If you have some things while I'm to say before I play the finishing song, I have to find the video that you like.
Should we pray? Should we pray?
Please lead us. Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Heavenly Father, you are the resurrection and the life. You created life with one word, with your word, Lord. It all came from your mind first. You designed it and then you breathed life into it. Please, Lord, we pray that you would help people understand. And if there is some kind of a strange sin that wants to make them deny you, Lord, that you would just help them understand it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. We pray that your name would be glorified, Lord, that people could see how beautiful you are. In Jesus' name, amen.
I'm looking for the closing music, and I seem to have misplaced it.
I forget the name of it.
Okay, I found it. Hang on. All right. I'll meet you backstage in a little bit, but I'm going to play this first. Glory and honor to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
marvelous for words, too wonderful for comprehension, like nothing ever seen or heard. Who can grasp your infinite wisdom? Who can fathom the depth of your love? You are beautiful beyond description, majesty enthroned above. And I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Only God to whom all praise is due. I stand in awe of you. You are beautiful beyond description, too marvelous for words, too wonderful for comprehension, like nothing ever seen or heard. Who can grasp your infinite wisdom? Who can fathom the depth of your love? You are beautiful beyond description, majesty enthroned above. And I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Holy God, to whom all praise is due. I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. I stand in